I decided it with all of me, with my thinking, with my feeling, with my will, that I was going to heal myself. And so a week later, she called me in tears and she said, I don't know why I said no to you. I've been having a hip issue for years and I do have this addiction and I feel like it is kind of my connection to my father. If we want to have less neck pain, then we actually need to work on our communication and our relationships with other people. The biggest reason people get sick is because they do not know how to communicate. Every part is intelligent and is actually telling you a story.
You could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello everyone! Today we're meeting Inna Segal. She is an author, a healer, an international speaker, and also inner healing wisdom educator. Hello Inna, thank you for joining us today.
Hi Anna, nice to be here with you.
Thank you. So let's start a conversation by exploring your personal journey of becoming the one that you are today. What was the pivotal moment in your life that inspired you to follow the passion?
I think I didn't know I had a passion for helping people. When I was growing up, I thought that I had a passion for writing and I want to be an actress. So the passion kind of developed by coincidence, so to speak, although we know that it's not necessarily such thing, but synchronicity, we'll say. So I had started my life, I guess, where I had a lot of digestive issues and that kind of moved into having psoriasis on my skin, which is not a very pleasant condition. And then when I was, about 14, 15, I started getting this back pain and I went to see a lot of kind of medical type practitioners with my mum because that's what she'd been taught, that's all she knew. And by the time I was about 18, I was in agony a lot of the time. And I'd met at that time my partner and he was very open to just alternative medicine and exploring it and understanding it. And so for several years, I was going to see alternative practitioners with the attitude like I would see a doctor, where I'd go, you are the expert, you know everything, I know nothing, fix me, I'm paying you for it.
Right.
And when I was about 20, I got to a place where I was just in so much agony. I'd had a pretty big trauma that happened where I ended up having a child that died, and I was seeing this chiropractor 3 times a week. And this particular day, I just woke up in agony again. I couldn't move. My back was twisted and inflamed. And I went to see him. And he had heard about my situation from the phone call I did. And when he came out, he just went, Inna, your body's really stuck. And I said to him, yeah, I know that bit. So what are you going to do to help me? And he just became very quiet, and I think he thought about it and he went, well, your body wants to be stuck. It's like, there's nothing I can do for you. Go home. And so I came in being very depressed, but I left being enraged. But there was also at the back of my head a part of me that was saying, there's a part of you that wants to be stuck. There's a part of you that's holding on to all the things that have happened to you, and the body is speaking, but you're just ignoring it. So there's a language. And so I decided on the way home, and I want to say that this is very important to understand, that I decided it with all of me, with my thinking, with my feeling, with my will, that I was going to heal myself. I had no idea how to do that, but I thought to myself, you know what, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to start and see what happens. And so I started by actually placing my hands on my back. And later on, I reflected on this and realized that this was really connecting me to my brain and nervous system and allowing energy to move. And so I started breathing with the pain. Up until then, I was breathing very shallowly and I was trying not to feel anything. And so I actually gave myself permission to feel, which is very, very important in, in
Yes.
healing. And my mind was getting in the way, being negative and skeptical. And so I started counting backwards from 30. And at that point, this thought came into my head. I wonder if there is anything divine out there that could help me heal right now. And there was this warmth that just poured into my body. I had my eyes closed and I could see this golden light. And so I thought to myself, something's happening. And then for whatever reason, this thought came into my head and it was like, I wonder what my back actually looks like. And before I had a chance to think about anything else, it was as if somebody turned this switch on and I could see my back. I had this X-ray vision. I got a fright, but then I thought to myself, okay, why do I have this pain in my back? But also, why am I sick all the time? Show me. But I was coming to this kind of exploration for the first time, not from a victim, but from actually wanting to know. And I didn't know that I was this very visual person at the time, but I started getting these images and memories of coming to Australia, not knowing one word of English, being bullied at school for being different, as you would relate, from being from Eastern Europe, from just not fitting in. And I was aware that this is where my skin condition started. And then going to another school, and it was a private school where people were either super, super wealthy or from Eastern Europe, people who didn't have much money. And again, there was a different type of being put down. And this is where my back just started, having issues because I felt so unsupported, but I also felt like I could not talk to my parents about this. They were having their own conflicts and issues and challenges around just being in a different country as well. And so I just held it in and then it was really interesting with my digestive issues that my grandmother lost a lot of people in her family during the war. And I realized everybody in the family actually has digestive issues. I, at an earlier age, had more than others, but everyone has digestive issues. And when I had my own loss of a child, it became really, really bad where I could hardly eat food. And so I started connecting the pieces. I allowed myself to feel, to cry, to process this stuff because my grandmother didn't talk about what happened to her for about 50 years. And so I felt this kind of unwinding happening and I fell asleep and probably had the best sleep in years. And when I wake up, I realized that about 70% of the pain was gone and I didn't feel that twistedness in my back. It wasn't inflamed. Well, it didn't feel inflamed in that way. And I thought to myself, as skeptical as I am, because I'd had a lot of experiences where I'd feel better and then I'd go backwards, I'm just going to keep exploring and I'm going to see what else I discover. And so I did for the next several weeks. And by the end of those weeks, my skin just was completely perfect. And I've never had psoriasis since, which, a lot of people in my family have it as well. Yeah. So my back pain improved. Well, I didn't have back pain to a point where I've literally never had it since. I might have a twinge if I stand on high heels for a whole day, but I've never really had back pain since then. My digestion has taken a lot longer, but it improved. And I also had anxiety that went down. So I thought, okay, something amazing has happened. And at that point, I didn't actually realize that I'd also discovered this ability to see, well, uncovered, opened up, let's call it, this ability to see into other people's bodies. And so it was like, okay, now something has opened up that I want to explore. So this is where I kind of started.
Wow, it's a lot that happened for you, and you had so many chronic conditions that, nowadays people don't even know that they have a cure for, and they consider autoimmune sometimes conditions. Because I also work in the pharmaceutical industry, like I see how people are really taking one medicine after another and nothing helps. It's just covering, releasing the symptoms, but really the actual origin of that condition is never healed and nobody knows where it's coming from. But with listening for your story, and you then started talking about how your body communicates with you, I just really want to dive more into what inspired you into writing your book about the secret language of your body, and what kind of perhaps maybe certain signs that people can watch for and see what they mean and really understand how can they really uncover that language for themselves and break it down in more simple way for them to understand what to do if the body communicates this way. Can you just elaborate more on that?
Absolutely. So there were several reasons why I wrote the book. One of the biggest reasons was actually because I was seeing people, and I remember one of my earlier clients, and she was actually a Chinese medicine practitioner, and I would say to the client, don't tell me much about what's going on. I just want to discover it, because I want that language of the body to communicate with me. I want to understand it, and I want to know can it be a language that we can all learn? Is it universal, essentially? And this particular client, and I'm just using her as an example because there was many, she was saying, yeah, of course. And as I was kind of uncovering things, we were focusing on her hip area, and it was her right hip. And I had by that stage understood a little bit about the fact that each kind of side of the body was giving us insights and messages, and the right side was particularly related to the males in our lives and the impact, because our body is essentially a map of everything that's happened to us in our lives. And so it holds it. And I said to her, okay, I feel like there's issues around your father that you have, and it's connected to your hip. Do you have hip issues? And she kind of became really frightened, and she said, no, I don't. And I said to her, and then we were talking about she had an addiction to cigarettes, and I was like, well, I really feel like it's intertwined again with your father. I feel like that's what's being shown to me. And again, she was very uncomfortable. And she said no, and it felt to her that it was too direct in what I was saying. And so a week later, she called me in tears, and she said, I don't know why I said no to you. I've been having a hip issue for years, and I do have this addiction, and I feel like it is kind of my connection to my father. And she said, I just don't know why. I felt like that. And I thought to myself, I think if I write things down and I read it to people and they kind of connect the piece rather than me saying it to them, maybe it will be different. And then I'm this person where I believe that people should heal in combination with somebody helping them, not just rely on someone like I did, because, it didn't help until I started participating in my own journey. And so I would give people all these processes, and then they'd come back and I would say, hey, did you do your homework? Home play. Did you work on anything on your body? And they'd go, I lost the piece of paper. And so I remember thinking to myself, if I wrote a book, they wouldn't have that excuse. So, I started having all these kind of connections, and I also felt like I'm a very detailed person when it comes to understanding the body and the language of the body. And the books that were around at that time, and there was not many, but there was two, I felt like they just didn't have the layering and the depth that I needed, both as a practitioner and as a person that wanted to dive deep into using all of me, essentially. I think I said that from the beginning, to do the process. And so, I couldn't, for me, affirmations didn't work. It didn't matter how many times I repeated something. I didn't feel the change personally, but actually connecting and asking questions and exploring and getting insights and memories and changing my perspective really did. And so I thought, okay, if I can take kind of ideas from all the different healing modalities that I was aware of at the time, from, pressure points to breathing deeper to visualization, touch, movement, then I can connect and hopefully inspire everybody, to try something, with the thinking, with the feeling, with the will. And, and so I started putting this book together. I was also, just before this happened, I went to see this publisher who at the time was publishing a lot of card decks. And I thought, well, why don't I see him and give him ideas for card decks and see what happens? And so I put different, I am always over-prepared, so I had 11 ideas. And he looked at me and he said, have you thought of writing a book about this? And I was like, yes, but I didn't know that you publish books. And he's like, I do it. I'm publishing books now. And he's like, I think if you put all of these things together, it could be a bestseller and I would publish it. And so he said, go home, write it, and I'll prepare a contract for you. So that's kind of how that all happened, because I thought to myself, well, I already have this, because I had been by that stage working with people for about maybe 5 years, and I keep a lot of notes.
Right.
And at that time, we didn't have Skype or Zoom or anything. It was literally either in person or on the phone. And I thought to myself, it's really interesting, because I'm seeing the same patterns over and over again with different parts of the body. Like, there is wisdom that the body is sharing with me. And so I also realized that a lot of it was logical if you understood the basics. So maybe I can share a few of those.
Of course, yeah. Let's just cover a few maybe practical tips for people to kind of like apply in their own lives.
Absolutely. So I think if we can break the body down a little bit first in understanding some things, and then we can, look at how do we work with it.
Yeah.
So what I found, for instance, is that anything that was in the back of the body was things that we really, really didn't want to deal with, and we tried very hard to push away. So if we take the throat area, which is connected to the neck, obviously, we already say, oh, he's a pain in the neck or she's a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Because we kind of know that this area is all about communication, And if we can't communicate with somebody in terms of our throat, right? If we cannot describe something and have somebody understand it, then we get frustrated and we push things away. We kind of go, okay, let's move on. I'm just going to push it to the back. And this is why so many people have neck pain. And if we want to have less neck pain, then we actually need to work on our communication and our relationships with other people. And so we need to start to understand, what does the body do, right? What's logical? And so, for example, I can go shoulder pain. A lot of people get shoulder pain as well. It's very interesting because it's connected to the heart, but it's also connected to the hip area. And so if we think about the shoulders, well, the shoulders get tense because we carry a lot of stress and responsibility and overwhelm. So to actually start to create change in terms of that, we need to recognize. So step one is always recognition. I was actually talking to one of my friends yesterday, and she was telling me about a digestive issue she had. And I said to her, well, can I give you some insight? And she said, yes, please. And so as I was explaining things to her, she said, oh my God, my pain is going away, because this acknowledgement and recognition is so, so important. And I do want to say that there's different ways of working on things. There's the starting point, which is discovery, right? And the starting point is, let's say it's your neck, your throat, or your shoulders. It's asking questions, and it's asking the right questions. So the shoulders are about, what am I carrying? Am I taking responsibility for other people instead of myself? Am I doing too much? Can I slow down? And just by asking those questions, we start to get insights. And then from there, we need to look at our thinking around this. So can I change my perception and have boundaries? Right? Can I say no when I actually need to say no, when I don't have the energy to do something? And then we might go, okay, let's go into emotions. Why do I feel deeply that I need to carry other people's responsibility? Where does that come from? And so from here, we may explore some experiences. And what I do want to say is that experiences are layered, and people get frustrated because they go, but I looked at this experience and I've worked on it. Why is this issue not gone? Because from one experience, you had perspectives that you've built, right? And from that perspective, you then had another experience and another experience and another. And when people talk about root cause of something, they just want to go, I'm only going to work on one experience and then it's gone. And it doesn't work like this. It's layered, right? And the beauty of your body and the language of your body is that it's connected to your soul, and your soul has wisdom. And this wisdom will not let go of something that has not been really looked at and transformed. Or what it will do is it will let go, but then it will come back, because there's something else that you need to explore and understand. And at times, the reason I say it's thinking, feeling, and will is about change in the physical world. So you might have to communicate with somebody and say, look, this doesn't work for me anymore, how you treat me, because you start changing how you treat yourself. Or you might go, I'm actually going to have to move out of this environment that I'm in because it's unhealthy. Or it could be, I have to change my job because it's unhealthy for me to be in. And until I actually make that move, not just healing emotional or mental kind of changes in terms of doing processes, but I actually have to make a real change, a real step forward, because your environment, so if you have a toxic environment, it's not the easiest thing to change your internal environment, right? for most people. So at some point you would have to make that step if that is going on. And so understanding this thinking, feeling, and will is really, really vital in terms of healing. And also just knowing where to ask questions, asking things like, well, what does this body part do? Like, what's it about? So we know the heart is about intimacy, right? We
Yes.
already have language that says, my heart's in it or not in it. It's about intimacy, it's about purpose, it's about passion. With the digestive system, it's kind of like, what does it do? It digests food, but it also digests experiences and it assimilates experiences. So the reason everybody in the family had digestive issues because they had traumatic experiences that they just kind of pushed away and didn't assimilate. And so that then also gets passed down to everybody. That's what kind of hereditary or ancestral, trauma means.
Yeah.
And so, when we understand that and we go, okay, what are the legs for? They're for movement. So if I'm having issues with my knees or legs or ankles or feet, there's something about movement forward in my life that I need to be looking at. So, I'm stuck somewhere in some, aspect of my life. And if we break the body down into feminine and masculine, and the feminine part is always connected to the left side of the body because it's your heart, right?
Yeah.
And the heart is about nurturing. It's about love and connection and understanding you internally. It's more of a feminine quality, whereas the masculine is more about planning for the future and making things happen and doing things in the world and passion and what am I gonna, my legacy. And so that's more the right side of the body, but it also gives us a lot of clues to our relationships, especially with with our mother, with our father, what we saw as we were growing up and what we took on internally, how we process that information, how we went, do I want to be like my mom? Do I want to be like my dad? Is this feminine and does this make me feel like I want to be like that or I don't want to be like that? And
Yes.
so, so much of that builds our body, our
Wow.
health.
That's amazing. So much to really take in. And I want to also touch upon the connection between our emotions and our bodies. So if we don't process certain emotions as experiences come up, if we really suppress them, what could happen and how we're going to see it really reflected in our issues with our bodies?
When you suppress your emotions, and I want to say, to even have an emotion, you also have to have a way of thinking and seeing life, particular way. And emotions are often also intertwined with experience. So when we have emotions and we generalize, we have a tendency for generalizations.
Yeah.
And so we might go, well, I have anger. And I say to people, anger where? Because anger in my throat and anger in my lower back and anger in my stomach are not the same. And they're not about the same things. So if I find that I have anger in my throat, it's about something that I'm not saying and to whom. And then I can really start to dig deep into why am I not communicating. But I also want to say that the biggest reason people get sick is because they do not know how to communicate. And it often does start from that, or they've been shut down, I should say.
Yeah.
And so many, many issues start from this area and then appear in other parts of the body. And the more I hold back and I can't communicate, that whatever that is, that could be anger, frustration, feeling of rejection, it will connect to another part of my body, so potentially my heart. And I'm going to start creating physical issues because these parts of my body, my throat, my heart, are now having an issue communicating together. And this also affects my nervous system. And so, and the nervous system is all about making sure that all the messages, get through to all the different parts of the body. And everything in the body, unlike some aspects of medicine, everything in the body is actually connected and communicating with other parts of the body. And so if my throat is shut down in terms of communication and my heart, that energy that's going to move through my body, it moves through the blood, it moves through, we've all heard we're 70% plus water, but it's not the same water as this water. It's not, it's kind of, it's intelligent, right? It has wisdom already inside of it. And as this energy moves through the body, through the circulatory system, the lymphatic system, it's moving with these thoughts, these feelings, these memories and experiences, and it's basically creating your health or your illness. And so the more you suppress, the more likely you are to have or ignore, you're likely to have issues, and these issues will show up in combination of, like I was working with somebody with reproductive issues with cysts, for example. When you look at something like that has kind of is holding this liquid, and you look at what is, what is that about? Like, it's in the reproductive system, and so it's connected to the feminine because it was connected to a feminine person. And we started to go, okay, so how this is also an area that's kind of around the reproductive system that's connected to a particular time period and age, often between the age of 7 to 14. So what happened at that time that then connected this person to later experiences in intimacy and relationships? And so we connected this to the fact that when this person was really young, how her father treated her mother was pretty painful to watch, and it made her really afraid of relationships. And so eventually, at the age of 28, which is actually where the throat chakra and the energy develops here, she met her future partner. She couldn't communicate with him properly because she didn't know how to communicate. She didn't see it from her family. And so she ended up constantly, where both of them ended up miscommunicating and hurting each other, which then led to a lot of fighting, which eventually caused her to have cysts and issues in her reproductive system. So it's like there's a journey that happens, and the more you know about the body, the more you realize that every part is intelligent and is actually telling you a story. So
Definitely.
I've never met somebody who has liver issues who doesn't have rage or issues with their father. And, people can say, yeah, but it's because they drink alcohol or because of this or that. A lot of them didn't drink alcohol. Some did. But there was always issues around the masculine and the father from the beginning. And so it's like every part of the body has so much wisdom, and the more we understand it, the more we can work with it.
Wow. Yes. If you kind of like start asking those questions and find the insight by digging deeper, you start reconnecting really with your true nature and understanding more of yourself. So it's it's wise the way the body communicates with us, and we just need to really listen to it and don't ignore and start paying attention. And sometimes people kind of like don't notice that, or if they do, they kind of don't feel like it's important to address those type of issues. But then it becomes louder and louder and louder. It could really lead to a crisis, a health crisis. And that's when people have no other choice but to listen, right? So it's like there is no avoiding that. And the more subtle kind of like connection we get in the beginning and understand it, the better we can address it and don't wait until it's kind of like too late for us, right? So, and I feel like that book that you wrote about the body language would be very practical for people to look at. Yes. Thank you for showing that.
Everybody.
Yes, I'm gonna also add it in the show notes as well so people can look it up. And I also want to really like touch upon the colors that you are, I think you have like a card deck or some kind of project that you worked on. You can talk more about it. And what is the connection between different colors and the chakra system and the body parts, and how we also can really be more mindful of what colors affect us in what way?
Well, color actually affects us emotionally. It is one of the fastest ways to change our emotional state. And it's actually something you can really explore both with yourself and with children. Children are amazing in terms of working with color, which I'll get to in a second. But we eat color, because we're essentially every food has color. We drink, something that has color. We're surrounded by nature, which has color. I believe in our environment, we need to bring in color. And there's been a lot of experiments done where people would be put into, even I think in prisons, people put into areas that had just black or red, and they found that people would get depressed or they get aggressive, or they would be put in an area that has light blue or light green, and they just naturally calm down. So just even painting the walls, you calm down. And I feel like if I can show people a really quick exercise that they can do, is rubbing your hands together. And when you do that, you're actually working on your circulatory system and your lymphatic system and waking your body up. And so you do that for about 30 seconds, and then, making sure that every finger is touching. And then you place your hands slightly apart, and you would imagine a color, but imagining it from the sense of feeling that color. So if I could feel red and play with the kind of the ball of red energy, it feels warm and it feels kind of heavier. And then red is a color to help you with energy. And how many people have fatigue at the moment? And so actually bringing a little bit of that energy, let's say rather than having coffee, you might bring it to your adrenal glands and really breathing that in and focusing on that feeling of that energy coming into your adrenal glands. Or you might bring it to your feet. So there's different parts of the body that you can send the color into. Or you might be somebody who's overwhelmed, in which case I would not be working with, with red. I'd work with, with blue. And so I would do the same thing, visualize this blue light, and then send it into the nervous system while repeating the word calm, calm, right? So we can actually change our state so quickly. And I remember one time I was thinking about this. I was on a flight I think it was to Perth in Australia. And I was thinking, where, which is a country which, has made me feel so good. And I was thinking Paris is the place. I've
Mm-hmm.
taught a lot in Paris. I love Paris. And I thought to myself, so when I'm there, I'm literally walking around with this massive smile on my face. And I have a lot of friends there, and they're like, okay, calm down. French people don't, relate well to this huge smile, walking around like this. And I was like, I didn't care. But I was thinking to myself, well, since I can't be in Paris all the time, but I do want to feel like I feel when I'm in Paris, what is the color that connects, reminds me of that feeling of joy and happiness? And it was this, I just got this fuchsia pink. And I thought to myself, okay, so I can actually bring that sense of joyousness into my heart, into my body through that color that is connected to those experiences. And color, if I can also give a metaphor, I believe that when we're born, we're kind of born into this castle, and we have access to every color, which expresses our, creativity, our uniqueness, who we are, our kind of, this is me, right? This is my essence. And it has
Yes.
all these different layers of coloring. But as we get older, we're told, shut this down or that down or that down, or this is not okay. And so we move out of this castle into this 2-bedroom apartment. And so then we only show our colors or flavors, in this very limited way. We show 3 colors and we get used to them, and then we're like, okay, this is me. As opposed to, and this really affects your relationships actually, because people, you get bored with you and so do others. I know I'm saying this in a kind of a way of, boredom, but to really love your life, you need to explore your internal colors and you need to expand them, and you can do that by every day, by just going, what am I going to wear and why am I wearing it? How does it make me feel? Just by being conscious, right? Just by being conscious. And if I can just share very quickly a story
Yeah.
with my children to do with color. When my children were really young, I was, every night when we'd go to bed, we'd talk about a story connected to color or a character or how color could help us. And I remember my daughter was around 4, and one day she came home from kinder and she stood in the middle of the kitchen and she went, I'm not happy. And I saw my son, who was 3 years older than her, running from another part of the house and saying, hey, Angelina, quick, 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 look at pink, because it's going to make you happy, because we talked about pink. And she looked down at herself and she said, but I'm wearing pink. And he's like, look, quick, look at her, look at yourself. And then she just started smiling. And it was like, the state changed completely. And this is what I found with children. How can you be really creative with this? I actually wrote about this in my book, The Secret of Life Wellness, how parents can use color and work with children around this. And so, yeah, color is just something that when we consciously bring into our lives, everything becomes so much more colorful and fun.
Definitely. And I just also want to understand, I know we have chakra systems that connects to different parts of the body, and they kind of connected to a certain color, right? So if there is a way for us to kind of use colors to send energy to a certain part of the body in a way and kind of help ourselves heal, if any practical way to do it like at home, or something you can mention that we can really apply?
Absolutely. Well, we have colors that most people have some kind of an agreement about in terms of what does a healthier chakra look like in terms of, majority of people. But I do want to say that that's not necessarily how everybody's chakras look. And it's also not necessarily that every, just because we've said universally, archetypally, I'm going to say that color is kind of, is connected to the chakra, that there's no other colors. But so what I would say is, again, like with the body, if we look at the chakras, and, we need hours to really go into this properly, but I'll try to be very quick. Most people go, okay, so the root chakra is red. And it's actually interesting why it's red as well. It's because that chakra also develops in the first 7 years of life and is connected to the physical body. So red is blood as well. And so it's actually to do with vitality and the physical development of the body. And it's also a color that attracts. So when we look at the chakras from a place of health, but also attracting what we want to experience in our lives, then, it's both physical and, this is where we kind of co-create our life, our experience. And, and then if we look at the sacral and the color is orange, it's all about that creative sense. So it's both. This is often where the inner child is as well. This is also about being creative and playful. But orange is also a color that connects to trauma and bringing kind of whatever we have pushed down to the surface. So again, the more we can understand about it, the more we can go, if I kind of visualize or pour this orange light into, let's say, my sacral chakra, am I ready to work with my inner child? Do I know how to, do I have the skills and capacities? Because I know when I was in my 20s, I remember thinking, oh, inner child, fluffy. No, this is all connected to your developmental stages and what actually happened to you. And so you have to be prepared and ready, so what I'm saying is, if you learn, and again, I write a lot about colors in my Secret Language of Your Body book, and I have the color cards. If you understand a bit about the color, you might go, maybe when I send the color into my body, I'll just start with, very light colors and see how I feel. So rather than, really red, we might just go with very light red and see how does my body receive that. And, the same with orange. If I understand that orange kind of brings trauma out, have I worked on it enough? Am I ready for something like that? But it also brings creativity out. So it's like, okay, maybe I can be more creative. But sometimes I'll say to people, let's say with the throat, we have blue as the color. But if you want to warm your speech, if you want to speak to somebody in your family in a loving way, you might want to bring orange to your throat instead of working with the blue of the chakra, or in the third eye, we have kind of violet often as a color. And so here you might go, well, there's all these parts of purple that I could explore because that kind of connects you to the divine. But if I wanted to study and concentrate on a project, I might work with yellow because yellow is a color that helps me to study. So actually learning about the different colors and what they're for is not only fun, but it can help you to go, where would I send that color, not just based on the chakras, but
Yeah.
on actually understanding what you want to do and why as well.
Yeah, so there are different energies as well. So we know how to help ourselves to really come to that state of mind and perhaps some creativity way of starting kind of project or working on our passion, so we know what to look for in terms of helping ourselves. Maybe bring that color into your bedroom or your study room, right? So, and then you will feel the effect on how it helps you to calm down or relax or come to that creative state. So it would be interesting to really learn more about it and know how to connect and help ourselves as well. So, and as we close today, I would like you to share how people can find you online and what perhaps some projects you're working on currently.
Beautiful. Well, people can definitely find me on my website, which is innasegal.com. So INNASEGAL.com. And some of the things I'm actually doing a lot of amazing teaching online. And what you can do is you can actually join one of my masterclasses where I guide you through a healing theme. And we also do several processes so that you can actually experience what I'm talking about immediately. And so you can either go Inna Segal / masterclass, or you can go to the secret language one if you're just the beginner and just learning about where are things going on in my body and what's happening. But also definitely sign up to my newsletter, because we're constantly sending things out, including podcasts and very powerful information as well. And you can find me on Facebook, Inna Segal /author. I'm also, so I have written several books, several card decks. I have a card deck coming out on ancestral healing. So that's going to help people to reconnect with their ancestry and start exploring different questions and what came out of that experience from, from your family and how you can heal. I'm also working on one to do with inner child from the perspective of looking at different stages of development and how we developed and how it affected us as we got older. And I'm working on another book, so I'm always busy. And that one is all about different stages of healing and what it means to be in each stage and how we can work with each stage of healing rather than either try and skip it or push it away or create more havoc for ourselves by not understanding what's really going on in that stage.
Wow, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and wisdom. I'm going to include that in the notes, all the social media links, how people can find you. And as we close today, what would be the final thought for our listeners?
I would say that exploring and opening your mind to new possibilities. So whether you have a health issue, rather than believing everything somebody else says to you, actually start to connect to the body and explore. And I definitely talk about how to do that in all my masterclasses as well as in the Secret Language of Your Body book. But just placing your hands on your body and asking questions, you will start to get insight. And then I would say, even if you don't have health issues, start to connect to your inner self. And you can do that by even asking, what is a color that I'm expressing today? And is this the color that makes me more expansive or more contracted? Or how does it make me feel? How do I walk when I express this color? How do I connect to my loved ones? What does my voice sound like? And I just feel like the more you can express, the more you get to know who you are. And it's a lot easier to be fulfilled in your life and, you know, experience deeper sense of joy and, you know, aliveness when you can do that.
Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy your day. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned!